My name is Tom. As a surgeon at a general hospital, I spend my days extremely busy. The job of a surgeon is physically and mentally very demanding. My colleagues and junior doctors are always complaining about the busyness. Just yesterday, I was consulting with my good junior, Alex. "You know, this hospital is just too busy. I'm thinking about moving to another hospital," he said. "What are you talking about? A general hospital is the best place to hone your skills," I replied. Despite everyone being exhausted, I was working hard for my wife, Sarah, and my soon-to-be 2-year-old son, Max. Max was angelically cute. When I get home, he greets me with his unsteady steps, calling out "Daddy," and it soothes both my body and soul. But child-rearing was more challenging than I imagined at times. Since Sarah's burden of child-rearing inevitably became bigger, I took on as much housework as possible. I was not good at cooking, so I left that to Sarah, but I eagerly did what I could, like cleaning and laundry. Of course, whenever time allowed, I would play with Max or put him to bed, trying to give Sarah some time to rest. I would like to have a second child if possible. But due to the nature of being a doctor, my life schedule was irregular, and it was hard to find the right timing with Sarah, who was always tired. I had almost given up on bringing up the topic of a second child with Sarah. Even though it might be difficult right now, I have Max, who is more precious than anything, and I decided to wait patiently until Sarah gets into the pace of parenting. I thought so and was struggling with work and raising my son every day. As time went by, it seemed that Sarah was gradually regaining her strength. She seems to be going out during the day, and her smile has increased. "You seem to be in good spirits lately," I said. "Do you think so? Maybe I'm finally getting the hang of it." Sarah laughed, and I was very happy to hear that. If things continue like this, Sarah might start thinking about a second child. I need to work harder for Sarah and Max. I thought about these things as I went through my days. But as she got better, Sarah started to neglect cooking. In the beginning it was only occasional, but gradually it became more and more frequent to have takeaway or delivery. "Sorry, I didn't have time today. Is takeaway hamburger okay?" she said apologetically at first. Eventually, when I came home, she was asleep, and a store-bought hamburger was left alone in the dark room. I found out that Max was being left at the daycare quite often. I thought Sarah needed a change of pace and didn't say anything at first, but she started to leave him there until quite late almost every day. "I can't make it in time. Can you pick him up?" she asked me more than once or twice. This must be going too far with outings. I was determined to have a serious talk with Sarah. One day, when I went to pick up Max from daycare as usual, a staff member approached me hesitantly and said, "Excuse me, can I have a moment?" "Yes," I replied. "It's about Max. Is he eating well at home?" "Excuse me. We think Max might have lost a bit of weight." Now hearing that, I feel the same way. When we give out snacks here, he eats them so eagerly, it made us a little concerned. "I see. Thank you for bringing up something so difficult. I'll check with my wife," I answered calmly, but I was filled with remorse towards Max. But more than that, intense anger was welling up inside me towards Sarah. Could it be that she hasn't been providing proper meals to Max? If that's the case, it's unforgivable. Not just for me, but for Max. I thought I'd give her a piece of my mind today. With that thought, I headed home. When I got home, Sarah wasn't back yet. There was instant food on the table, but I didn't touch it and ate a deli I bought on the way home. The deli is from a nearby place known for its delicious and nutritionally balanced. "Max, is it good?" "Yum, yum." Max was happily gobbling down the meat. Watching him made me feel guilty again. When I weighed Max during his bath, as expected, his weight had decreased. As I was dressing Max in his pajamas, trying desperately to hide my frustration, I heard a sound from the entrance. It was Sarah. "Welcome back. I'm home. I need to talk to you about something. Now, I just want to sleep." I was irked by Sarah's selfishness. After all her fun, she plans to sleep without even checking on Max. Yes, right now. Perhaps sensing my anger, Sarah reluctantly followed me to the living room. The daycare staff mentioned today that Max might not be getting proper meals. "Lately, my dinner has been nothing but instant foods too. Aren't you slacking off a bit too much? You're not giving Max properly nutritious food, or his weight is dropped. If there's a reason, just tell me straight." Sarah remained silent, looking down, tapping her toes, seemingly irritated. Her lack of remorse made me even angrier. "I'm okay with having those meals, but you're Max's mother. What do you intend to do?" Then Sarah stood up abruptly and said, "Stop nagging. I'm doing my best. It's just that Max won't eat what I serve him." "What? Enough already. I'm tired and going to sleep." "Hey, wait a minute." Ignoring me, she disappeared into the bedroom. What on earth is going on with Sarah? I was left standing there, dumbfounded. Realizing that this couldn't continue, I started preparing meals for Max every day for his sake. Even when work kept me late, I made sure to prepare plenty of meals in advance so he could easily eat. However, even as I juggled work and household chores to the point of exhaustion, Sarah's attitude remained unchanged. Then one day, during my shift, an emergency surgery came up. I was waiting with my colleagues for the ambulance to arrive. The patient was a young woman who seemed to have been hit by a car while walking. When the ambulance arrived and the patient was brought out, I was at a loss for words. It was Sarah. Sarah. Tom. Fortunately, Sarah was conscious. Seeing me, she seemed surprised too. As she was carried on the stretcher, Sarah explained to me what had happened. I was coming back from dropping Max off at daycare and got hit by a car. Got it, we'll talk later. You don't need to speak now. Despite saying that, I couldn't help but feel a faint question arising in my mind. The accident site we just heard about, it was quite far from the daycare, wasn't it? Why was Sarah in such a place? But Sarah's treatment was a priority now. I shook my head vigorously, trying to dismiss the doubts. Sarah, you need surgery. The bleeding from your thigh is severe. Surgery? Yes. Can you take off your clothes? If it's too painful, we'll have to cut them off. Take off my clothes? No. No way. I know it might be embarrassing, but this is not the time for that. We can't proceed with a surgery like this. Then don't do it. Absolutely not. What's going on? If we don't do something, your life is in danger. I desperately tried to persuade Sarah, but she adamantly refused to take off her clothes. We couldn't get anywhere. We had to stop the bleeding somehow. I decided to have the anesthesiologist administer anesthesia and proceed with the surgery forcibly. Once Sarah was unconscious, we began the preparations for the surgery. As we undressed her to change her into surgical attire, a nurse noticed a tattoo around her waist. Then she asked me, "Your wife has a tattoo?" No, I didn't know that. When did Sarah get a tattoo? Upon closer inspection, it appeared to be initials. But it wasn't my initials. As I was intently looking at the tattoo, I noticed one of the juniors retreating from the buzzing crowd. It was Alex, the one I had counseled before. What's going on? He looks pale as a ghost. Something was nagging at me. But this was not the time for that. I forced myself to look away from the tattoo and went back to preparing for the surgery. The surgery was successfully completed, and Sarah was hospitalized for a short while. Although I was relieved that the surgery was over, the thought of Sarah's tattoo haunted me, and a sense of unease clung to me. "Daddy." Startled by Max's lonely voice, I snapped back to reality. I realized Max was looking at me with tears in his eyes. "Max, Mommy is okay, don't worry." Then, silently, Max clutched the hem of my shirt tightly. Right, Max has been feeling insecure all this time. I felt unbearable and hugged Max tightly. I must not let this continue. Holding Max in my arms, I resolved to clear up the doubts. I decided to hire a detective agency to investigate Sarah to clear the lump in my throat. Though I had my suspicions about Sarah, deep down I hoped it was all a misunderstanding and nothing would come of it. But regrettably, the agency provided undeniable evidence of Sarah's infidelity within just a few days. As I thought. Deep down, I knew. I was just turning a blind eye to reality. And more shocking news was revealed. The cheating partner was one of my junior doctors. It was Alex, who had turned pale when the tattoo was found. It was all too clear upon reflection. The initials on her tattoo matched his. I thought he was a close junior, but he had been betraying me behind my back. I felt as if all strength was draining from my body and my own foolishness. But I couldn't just sit idly by. I have someone I need to protect, Max. I decided to get a divorce and started to organize my things. A few days later, Sarah came home from the hospital, using crutches. "What's this all about?" Seeing the living room packed up as if we were about to move, Sarah let out a surprised gasp. She stood frozen at the entrance, seemingly not having expected this. But when she saw the divorce papers on the table, she murmured, "Ah, I see," and sat down quietly in a chair. "I know everything." I showed Sarah the report from the detective agency and said calmly, "So, all the outings were for this reason. I can no longer trust you. Let's get a divorce. After all the betrayal, you can't possibly object, right?" Then, with a sigh mixed with a chuckle, Sarah said, "I won't say anything. Fine, let's get a divorce." Her casual tone irritated me. Despite being at fault, she had the nerve to act so defiant. I didn't want to talk anymore, but there was something I had to ask. "Why did you have an affair? Are you really in love with that guy?" "Yes, seriously, actually, he was the one from the start." "What do you mean? You really didn't notice? How naive." Saying that, Sarah smirked maliciously. "I've been with him long before we got married." "What?" I felt as if I had been struck hard on the back of my head. "But he was just a resident with no money. I married you for financial stability and continued seeing him. So, you've both been deceiving me this whole time." "Well, you could say that. My bad." Sarah said it lightly, not seeming to feel guilty at all. This is just too much. A mix of anger and sorrow made my head spin. Without paying any attention to how I felt, she continued, "But now he's a full-fledged doctor. I'm going to divorce you and marry him. It's good that we got caught." I glared at her, holding back tears. "You, what a person you are. Thank you for everything," she said with a sneer, appearing as a stranger to me. I couldn't believe my entire marriage was a lie from the start. What a person. I didn't want to talk to her anymore. I felt like running away right then. But there was still something important to decide. I took a deep breath to maintain my composure and broached the most crucial topic. "As for Max's custody, of course, I'll be taking him," I stated firmly, looking into Sarah's eyes. I thought she'd say she didn't want custody since she hadn't been taking care of him at all. But surprisingly, she said, "Wait a minute, I won't give you Max." "What are you talking about? You've barely looked after him, always leaving him at daycare or with me." This is the line over here. You're always busy with work and you don't put your family first. You didn't raise Max, I did. What? What kind of logic is that? We're not getting anywhere. Does she not realize how much I've sacrificed for Max's upbringing, even losing sleep over it? After neglecting Max for so long, I can't believe she can say such things. She stubbornly continued to refuse, saying, I won't give up Max. Seeing that we were getting nowhere, I decided to make a proposal to her. I wasn't too keen on it, but I had no choice. Look, we're not going to resolve this within us. How about we let Max choose? Let Max choose. Yes, shouldn't we respect his feelings? All right, fine. I was honestly very nervous about my own suggestion. Even though I had been the one taking care of him, I couldn't help but worry that he might still choose his mother in the end. Sarah's easy acceptance of my proposal suggested she was confident that Max would choose her. What if Max chooses Sarah? I shook my head vigorously, trying to dispel the negative thoughts. Then, I brought Max from the other room where he had been watching TV. I kneeled down to be at eye level with Max and asked him, Max, we need to talk about something difficult. Daddy and Mommy are going to live separately. Who do you want to live with? I didn't expect my 2-year-old son to understand, but I looked into his eyes and asked him. As expected, Max seemed confused, looking back and forth between Sarah and me. He seemed unsure what to do and started waving his stuffed toy around. Maybe it's too harsh to make him choose. Just as I was about to give up and stand, he said, Daddy, with tears in his eyes, and clung to my leg. I want to be with Daddy. Don't leave me. I like Daddy. Max. I hugged him tightly, feeling overwhelmed with joy. Sarah turned pale and stood up abruptly with a loud noise. Max, why don't you want to come with Mommy? She tried to coax Max with a soft voice, but he shook his head and said in a small voice, I don't like Mommy. Mommy is always gone. Daddy plays with me. Daddy's food is yummy. I like Daddy. I don't like Mommy. Sarah was at a loss for words in response to Max's remarks. Max was earnestly expressing his feelings. He's so small, yet he sees everything clearly. Max's sincere words warmed my heart. It's okay. As long as I have Max, I'll be fine. So, that settles it. I'll take custody. But fine, okay. I can just have another child with him. Sarah tried to hide her frustration with a loud retort. I thought, serves you right, but that no longer mattered. Max and I are going to live our lives together. Afterward, the divorce between Sarah and me was finalized without issue. The news of our divorce quickly spread among my colleagues, along with the reason being Sarah's affair and that the other man was Alex. Faced with everyone's disdain and being ostracized, Alex came to apologize to me later. Tom, I'm truly sorry. I know an apology doesn't fix what I did, but I truly regret the terrible thing I've done. I see. Sarah and I have broken up. I'm leaving this hospital and will start over at a hospital in the countryside that I had been considering. All right, but I can't accept your apology. Tom. Of course, Sarah is to blame too, but you knew she was my wife and that we had a young child, and yet you continued your affair with her. I can never forgive you for that. I understand. I'm grateful for everything up to now. Not long after, Alex moved to a regional hospital. I sometimes wondered how Sarah was doing, now that her plans to marry him had fallen through, but it was none of my concern anymore. Then one day, something shocking happened. Sarah, abandoned by Alex, stormed into the hospital. Sarah I saw after such a long time looked disheveled, her hair a mess, and she appeared quite shabby. Sarah, what are you doing here? Where is he? Where is he? Sarah asked me in a frail voice. Up close, her skin was rough, and she looked extremely tired. Him. Oh, you mean him? Yes. Go call him right now. Sarah screamed like a banshee, her hair flying wildly. The other doctors and patients looked on from a distance, pitying her. But I didn't feel sorry for her at all. You don't know. He left this hospital, moved to the countryside. What do you mean? Poor you, got dumped. Oh, seems like you don't even know where he went. Tough break. What? You know where he is? Tell me. Yes, I know. But do you think I'd tell you? Sarah glared at me, but I continued with a smile. Oh, and I've already spoken to your parents about the situation. They both cried and apologized to me. What? You talked to them? Of course, I had to explain the circumstances of the divorce. How could you? They were pretty angry with you, you know. Even if you begged them for help because you can't pay the child support, they probably wouldn't. As I said that, Sarah collapsed on the spot as if all strength had left her. She was crying, but naturally, I felt no inclination to reach out to her. Well, work hard on your own and make sure to pay all the child support. I won't let you escape until you've paid up every penny. Be prepared for that. With that, I left her behind. The responsibility I bear has grown heavier since the divorce. But thinking of Max gives me strength from deep within. Lately, my cooking has improved, and seeing Max eat happily fills me with joy. The happiest moment is when Max sees me, runs over with a big smile, and calls out, "Daddy." All my fatigue vanishes in an instant. Even without a mother, I'll never let Max feel lonely. I'll devote everything to ensuring Max's happiness. Carrying a sleeping Max on the way back from daycare, I made this vow in my heart.